This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Banks Europe. Today, we have the privilege to have with us two exceptional startups from the BlockIS program. In this episode, we will deep dive into the logistics sector. So just to remind you, we had a previous episode where we focus on fintech. And now, as I was saying, the logistics sector before deep diving again in a couple of weeks, I think, with agri-tech. So let me introduce you our guests. We have Marco Filippi from Volvero. Ciao, Marco.
Hello, everybody. It's Marco here. Nice to be with you today.
Thanks. And then we have Jean-Christophe Finidori from HODLNG. Hello, JC.
Hello, Francesca. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the privilege to be with you.
Thanks a lot. So just to remind our audience, BlockIS is a European funded program that aim at fostering the blockchain ecosystem within Europe. So within this program, we had a lot of startups coming to the program that were kind of funded and pushed forward. And two of them are actually the one that we have today with us. I want to start asking you guys a little bit more about your solutions so our audience can also understand more what you're doing, and also maybe if you can focus on the technology, because it's actually the topic we are discussing today. Maybe Marco, can you start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Francesca, for the introduction. Yeah, we are Volvero, and Volvero is a technology startup that is now out on the market for the past 2 years. I am the CEO and founder of a team that is now composed by more or less 10 people. And what Volvero is doing is to provide an app in which owners of vehicles that can either be private owners or car dealers, car rentals, corporate, can put these vehicles available for the community. So Volvero is an app in which we allow the sharing of vehicles for 1 day or more. Of course, being part of the BlockIS program, it means that we are using the most cutting-edge technology solutions. In our case, it's not just about the technology that we use for developing the app, but also the blockchain that we are using for storing data in the chain, data related to users that we collect while they are using our platform. This way, we can have a reliable ledger in which all the driving data and the deep data about the vehicles themselves are stored and then are used for enhancing transparency in the model, lowering asymmetric information, and finally also to foster a gamification solution in which the best drivers, but also the best owners are rewarded through the credits or the token that we issue to them when they are using Volvero.
Thank you, Marco. Definitely, you are tackling quite an interesting problem since myself, but I also hear a lot of people having troubles with the renting car space. So it's interesting what you're doing. Jean-Christophe, your turn.
Thank you, Francesca. So in our hand, quick introduction on HODLNG. So I'm Jean-Christophe Finidori, founder of the blockchain startup HODLNG. We incorporated our startup in Tallinn, Estonia. We are 3 founders, originally from France, and we have 2 smart contract developers and a good team of advisors to support us in these ventures. We are focusing on one specific industry, the liquefied natural gas industry. So it sounds a little bit, it sounds like a distant in the context of logistics, but it's not, because we are serving the LNG industry in a very specific way. We support them to have more flexibility in their contracting approach, and more specifically, to track non-material value to each cargo transaction, to each LNG transaction. And how we do that, we create, and we did that in the context of BlockIS, we create what we call a digital asset. Some of our early adopters used to call that a digital twin, but basically it's a digital representation of a cargo, meaning that you can replicate that to any sort of industry or any sort of supply chain where you are facing a very old way to contract, an old-fashioned way to interact with your raw material, and where many inefficiencies has arisen, including lack of transparency and anti-competitive provisions in your contract. And how we address that, we program the blockchain to permit the creation of a digital asset. It captures all the information related to your cargo, the concrete information related to the gas characteristics, but as well all the non-tangible information. And we permit to track and to create a value for this non-tangible information. So currently we are very focusing on how to integrate, of course, to address the climate change mitigation, to incorporate all the GHG, the greenhouse gas emission, during the lifetime value of your cargo. We provide the possibility to integrate any other non-tangible attributes that you can give a value through the lifetime value of this digital asset and through the lifetime value of your cargo. And we have a proof of offsetting mechanism for the GHG emission, and we have as well a stacking system to redistribute the additional revenue. So this is what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe. Yeah, it's actually perfectly on point with logistics, I have to say. From your description, it's solving quite some interesting problems also in this case, especially in terms of inefficiency and the whole supply chain development. Talking about the general context, in the last episode with some fintech, so more on the financial services sector, one of the points that emerged was about a little bit the still fear that some people have towards the word blockchain. And I'm talking especially about investors maybe, or consumer, because they tend to associate that in the case of financial services with Bitcoins and so on. I'm quite interested in that because, I'm not, I truly believe in the potential of blockchain, but in specific use cases, I think that blockchain is much more valuable than in others. Sometimes it's quite a buzzword, And I do think that in the logistics sector, especially, it really finds a perfect fit. So I would like to hear both your opinion on this. And, I'm working in the financial services, so I'm not very used to the logistic world. So can you help me understand a little bit more?
I can start with by sharing my thoughts about it. So I really think that logistics sector is one of the probably best domains for this kind of technology. because there are several different reasons why blockchain is providing striking a point there rather than in other sectors. In particular, if we think about the need of transparency in the supply chain, for instance, that's very important. And we all know about the lack of transparency, trustability that we have in certain certification, like for instance the organic certification or other kind of products, for instance, in the food industry that are certified as to be like sustainable and blah blah blah. But we know that sadly, for most of them, there is a strong lack of reliable source of information, and hence there is or there are a lot of frauds going on in this specific domain. But it's not just about food; it's about also other kind of resources, natural resources that are used for being shipped all over the world. Or other kind of resources such as minerals, diamonds, and we all know them. Of course, blockchain really can help in keeping a more transparent way to track how these goods are sent from the producer till the person that is using the goods, or the intermediary organization, such as, for instance, factories that are using these resources for their production process. So, of course, this is one of the several adoptions in which blockchain was proved to be one of the game changer technologies. Indeed, we know that there are so many private institution into, for instance, shipping that are using blockchain, and they are among the first adopters of the technology, right? Because they understood what the added value of this was, and they also understood that we are creating value for the end customer, which is something that we should always consider when we are discussing about technology innovations and leap, because sometimes people tend to forget that it's not just about restricted circle of early technology adopters, but it's also about having an impact and an effect on the vast majority and on the mass adoption. So I really think that in these cases, the final user can really perceive a better experience or a higher benefit of the integration of this technology. And therefore, the end user is also can also consider to pay more for products that are, for instance,
qualified in a certain
qualified, exactly, or products on which we can really be sure about the source and the process that they have been into, and therefore that's why these big companies and industries in the logistic are really investing a lot into the technology.
Thanks, Marco. Jean-Christophe, what's your opinion around this? You have the same feeling of Marco or not?
Indeed. I will not reiterate what Marco just said, because you read some very good points about transparency, secure ledger, tamper-proofed. So this is some capabilities and some the strong benefits from that the blockchain can provide. The way I will tackle your question, just to complement what we've heard, is that first of all, the way to is blockchain, is it the currency? You know, when I was with the UN Nations, when I was speaking about Bitcoin in 2014, everybody said, okay, Bitcoin is to buy weed on Silk Road.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. That's
End of the question.
That's the whole point.
Yes, and the funny thing that 7 years from that, I heard that exactly the same thing last week. Someone told me, yeah, right, okay, Bitcoin and blockchain and cryptocurrency is just it's just another way to fund terrorism and to have money laundering.
You know what's the paradox in all this is that we are trying to focus on transparency, and then we are accused of the exact opposite. So it's really very funny for me.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
True. No, you're perfectly right to rate that. So in the context of logistics, it's really hard to focus on that and to imagine that. But the way you can use the blockchain is it's very fundamental to create two things: to introduce a scarcity, and basically it's programmable money. And in the context of logistics and in our context, it's another way, or I think a new way, an innovative way, to give some value to something that so far it was sometimes ignored, or sometimes they consider that it was just a source of cost. But now programming the blockchain in a very specific way, you can, as I said, you can create scarcity on something. You can value some information. You can disclose this information to someone who is willing to pay for that. You can play with this information. That's really interesting what we saw in the decentralized finance industry, the way you can create liquidity and the way you can stack some, technically speaking, to stack some tokens to create something else, or to secure another network, or to, and that was a very important point that you raised, Marco, to create a premium. In the context of the liquefied natural gas industry, now they are very focusing on what they call the carbon neutral LNG or green LNG. Of course, it's a fossil energy, so it's hard to compete with renewables. But by using this new way to provide some valuation, they can certify that their natural resource are extracted and the shipping until the end of customers. They can track and trace all the emissions, and they can value that as a premium for the end users. And basically, this is the main purpose for me of blockchain: how you track and trace the value, how you create a scarcity of the value, and how you provide an additional, and how you generate an additional revenue for all these for all the stakeholders on the value chain, including in the context of natural resources, including for the people on the ground, and the whole this mechanism, how you can program the blockchain, how you can create. You don't create a currency, you don't create a money, you create some value, and you have the possibility setting the rules to redistribute this value, or to make sure that every stakeholder has the legitimate and fair revenue from this premium. So this, again, beyond transparency, this is the way you create scarcity, and this is the way you value things that so far it was quite hard to give money to.
Yeah. Perfectly clear, actually. Thanks. And, I have this feeling that it's all about know what we're talking about, right? Like educate a little bit also the companies, the old players, the investors, and in some cases also the end consumers. So they are much more empowered to understand what it is about. And I think the purpose of BlockIS is also around that. So really try to push the European ecosystem and learn more about blockchain. But as you know, Europe, it's quite big and not really homogeneous in the way it's shaped. So I'm curious to understand if you also had some issues, or I wouldn't call them issues, maybe a little bit more things to do around the regulation process, because when talking about something new, there is always something also big question marks around regulation and processes and so on. So I also see Jean-Christophe, you have your company in Tallinn. So I want to understand a little bit more around that. Maybe Marco, you can start telling us if you had any issue with that.
Yeah, of course. European Union is a great place where to run a business because there is a very relevant market and also the average spending of people is quite high if compared to the rest of the world. But the fact that there are kind of 28 different countries and every country still has to deal with their own specific regulation and norms really make things very complex. So in our particular case of Volvero, for instance, we are addressing the peer-to-peer car sharing as well the B2C car sharing. And while in the B2C space, it's much easier for us to see a sort of uniform regulation and legal system across all over Europe. What we discover in analyzing the peer-to-peer space is that there is a highly fragmented market. So, for instance, in certain countries, the peer-to-peer car sharing is totally allowed, and there are a lot of rules that discipline it. While in other countries, they just mention what the peer-to-peer car sharing is and how they should, the players in the ecosystem should at least try to configure their solution. While in other countries, for instance, there is a total lack of any kind of rule and law about it. So these make things very complicated because what's allowed in one country may not be allowed in other countries. And if you are, for instance, an Italian company trying to do something in the peer-to-peer, you can't. But if you are a French company, maybe you can, and you can also sell your service in Italy, because you are a French company that has to deal with a French regulatory system. I'm saying French because it's, of course, one of the countries in which these peer-to-peer systems are or is more regulated than other country and more advanced. So there is still a lot of work that we need to do as European Union in order to level the play field for all the operators across very different industries.
Thanks, Marco. Jean-Christophe, tell us, a French in Tallinn.
A French in Tallinn story, Why Estonia? When you are a startup, and especially a blockchain startup, where you are located, where you are incorporated, it's really important.
Makes a difference,
Yes, and to make a long story short, I was located in Switzerland, so of course, Switzerland was a very attractive place to set up a blockchain startup, but there is some hidden cost that it's really expensive to conduct a business in this country. And then some others said, oh, you should explore Liechtenstein, because Liechtenstein was very active in the blockchain industry. And a lot of people said to us, Liechtenstein? For real? And so we were keeping searching. And at one point, why Estonia? Because they're super friendly. As a startup, you are tiny as you cannot not imagine. But when you have a country said, okay, we do know that you are super tiny. You do know that you are 2 or 3 people. But maybe tomorrow you will be much bigger. So come on, we have this residency program. Of course, we are not located in Estonia. So it makes for us perfectly sense, because we are using the internet for doing a lot of things, mainly including now to have events and conferences. So to integrate this idea to not living in the country that you have your business, or to live in a country where this is the way you design your story, the way you design your software and everything, but it's located somewhere else. This is something that it's completely inherently what the internet is providing us with. Yeah. So for us, it's completely, I would say, natural to living in one place and to incorporate a company in another place. And to address more precisely your question about the European Union, there is a lot of diversity, that's for sure. And this is something that we clearly can see in the Baltics, in Estonia. I mean, former countries, like very young countries, formerly part of the Soviet Union.
Right, yeah.
I mean, this is something that from France you have no idea what it could be. And so when I'm saying that European Union, it's a very young entity, and we are learning while we are working. And what is interesting that in the blockchain industry, Europe has very, very strong advantages. They are pushing for this technology. I would say the legal framework and regulatory framework. The main challenge that they have is not to focus on something that is wrong. Again, cryptocurrency is not a currency. So don't treat it as a currency. Please don't do that. Blockchain can provide something else. So it's very hard when you are a lawmaker to say, okay, but we have this old way of understanding, or we have this old benchmark, and of course you have all this lobbying pushing for, okay, blockchain should be regulated as a bank is regulated, because you are selling a financial instrument. And okay, we don't sell any financial instrument.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay. So you can use old regulation or old way to tackle some very new challenges, but it won't work that way. So it's very hard, as you said, to educate, including the lawmakers, because if you say currency, they would say, okay, security. If you say that impossibility to apply the privacy by design, or on the contrary, it's a privacy by design. You're in contradiction.
Yeah, the thing you say it right. I mean, it's a very young setup, but inside it has a lot of legacy for many countries. So it's very difficult to make it not so heterogenic. And also, of course, I mean, again, we go back to the point of education and knowledge sharing. The more we know about that, the better decision we can make. And that's why also the BlockIS initiative is so important, because it gives us the opportunity, first of all, to discover companies like yours and realities and geographies that are not so used for us, like the Baltics, as you were mentioning, but also to spread a little bit more the empowerment around the BlockIS community and ecosystem. So as last question, I want to talk a little bit more about the BlockIS project, what it meant for you, why did you apply, and what actually did you gain out of that? Marco.
So the BlockIS project was a very interesting one, because it came not only with some good financial aid, which is always
appreciated
welcome and appreciated, yeah, especially when you are an early stage startup, as we were back in the days, and we still are, by the way. But of course, getting access to That capital allow us to really improve our technology, our platform. So it was literally a game changer for us. And probably if it wasn't for BlockIS today, we wouldn't be here. And so I will always be grateful for that to the managers of the program, but also, of course, to who is founding these kind of programs. And of course, money is not everything. There are other good perks that came with the BlockIS program. So network opportunities, of course, it's one of them, but also the chance of having access to a network of mentors that were very good with topics like go-to-market strategy, market validation, and also some mentors were pretty technical. So we had the chance to also have someone to compare with and to ask for their opinion as like independent advisor. So all in all, I really think that BlockIS was so far one of the most important program for us at Volvero.
Thanks, Marco. Jean-Christophe, was also so positive for you as well?
Yeah, it was, and it is, again, thanks to the discussion of today. As Marco said, I can reiterate what is already said. Of course, the amount of money was really something that it was really something that we could spend, that it funds and it subsidized our development. So the amount of money, that the grant that we received, was very, very, very helpful. The funny thing that we incorporated the company in September 2019, and we applied for BlockIS, and we joined the first cohort. We applied in October, so we were like very young. And Snezhana, one of the co-founders, she said, "Okay, there is a grant. We should apply." And we said, "Okay, well, European Commission program. It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be so complicated." And she said, "No, it's straightforward to apply. Just a couple of questions, and it seems that we fit well." And so we applied, and we joined the first cohort, and it was great, because I do remember that in January, and if I'm correct, Volvero was with us in January in Istanbul, and it was very great to continue to have these ventures, to have this journey. And then the COVID came in March, so all this dynamic that we could experience in Istanbul, like meeting our peers and to engage with the mentors and the team, everything stops. But the good thing that BlockIS said, okay, we couldn't meet and we could have face-to-face meeting anymore, and we could convene you in one single location. But still, there were set up some events that we could engage, that we could attend, even remotely and of course virtually. But it was still very, very positive. So it was a very interesting program for that, because we hit the wall, all of us. We hit the wall of COVID in March and said, okay, January was something special, but we cannot duplicate that anymore. So let's do it in a different way. So for that, BlockIS, they were like super flexible, and they provide us with all the support that we need. And the most important thing, and this is something that from our perspective, I mean, from the European perspective, we didn't really get. But when in our situation, we are dealing with some people from all over the world. And every time we said, okay, we want a grant from European Commission, I said, wow, you want a grant from European?
Yeah, it's kind of a label, right?
Exactly. It's like we got this stamp, and they were from every part of the world, in Japan, in India, in Australia, in Nigeria, in US. I said, wow, you mean the European Commission? Was
the real European Commission?
What they were interested with what said yes, they were.
Nice
So
to hear.
it's really extremely powerful on the global level. You have no idea of that.
Nice, great. And you were mentioning, of course, COVID and the fact we couldn't do our missions in presence. But hopefully, as of September, we will have some more gatherings. In October, we have Milan and then Valencia and so on. So stay tuned, because we have a lot of news, hopefully, if the Delta variation is not killing us all. And okay, guys, thanks a lot. As very, very last question, I just want you to share with our audience where we can find more info about your companies. So about Volvero, where our listeners can find you, Marco.
You can browse for our website, volvero.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. We are also communicating through our Facebook page. That's always Volvero. And of course, for the audience of today, as soon as you are in Italy, download the app and be sure that you are renting a vehicle, or better, an electric vehicle for your travel here in Italy while you are getting around. So volvero.com and download the app.
Great. I'm actually based in Milan now, so I will do it immediately after this episode. Thanks, Marco. Jean-Christophe, about HODLNG.
In our case, the best way to follow what we are doing, because we are very active on LinkedIn, so make a quick search of HODLNG, and I'm sure the audience will find our post. And this is a network that we are cultivating, and it brings a lot of contact. So please interact with us via LinkedIn. Of course, we have our website, HODL.NG, and please shoot me an email, jc@hodl.ng, and I will be happy to continue the discussion with everybody. Thank you again.
Great, thanks a lot. We will put all the information in the description so everybody knows where to find you. All right, thanks a lot, guys. It was really a pleasure to have you in this episode. Thanks a lot to our audience, and remember to follow us also on social media, and stay tuned for the next episode. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.